Hey beginners, you don't have to hide away from changing your strings on your guitar. You don't have to be afraid. Let me show you how. Coming up. Hey everyone, Paul here, PZ Guitar. My head's out of shot, but the business end of this is in shot. And so today, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to show a couple of things that I just learned, some techniques I learned about how to change strings. And there's some tips, if you're a beginner, that you can use so that way it's not so daunting to change strings. Changing strings is an integral part of owning a guitar. You can change the feel, you can make it feel new. Strings wear out, they are a consumable product. So this is something that you should be able to learn how to do. And so what are the tools that you need in order to change a guitar strings? So you need a winder at the very least. This is a winder that doubles as a string cutter, and also has a little groove here to help remove the bridge pins. I have a better set of wire cutters. I have, just you never know, some needle nose pliers. I have a battery operated string winder, comes in handy. And one of the tips that I'm going to show you here today is that if you have a capo, whether you have a screw type capo or a spring loaded capo like this, that it can act as a third hand. And so that way you don't feel so encumbered about changing strings here. One of the other things that I want to show you is that it's a good time to clean the fretboard and the guitar while the strings are off. To use some fretboard conditioner. But also, before you change the strings, if you have one of these, a string gauge device that can measure the height of the strings. If you like the setup of your guitar, measure the string height before you take them off. So that way, if you are, like me, going to be changing from heavy strings to very, very, very light strings, the setup on the guitar is going to change. And so you're going to have to adjust the truss rod. Not a big deal, but it's a good thing to know just exactly where you start, so that way you can get to the same line later on. So let's get right to it. Let's take off these strings. These are the pillow touch strings from Zager. And I'm going to put on, I got a bunch of these, and I'm going to use these right now. So I'm going to put a set of these 942s on here. The pillow touches, I don't know what gauge they are, but they are very, very heavy. As my cat goes nuts. Oh well. Here we go. So let's take off the strings. I'm going to just loosen these things just just a little bit. I'm just going to loosen these guys here. Move my camera a little bit. I'm just going to loosen these up a little, just to take some of the tension off. Nice and loose. And now I'm just going to cut these strings. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can practice with cheap strings. You can go out and buy a set or two of cheap strings, so that way you can practice before you put on your really good set. So just imagine that you're going to use this technique and practice this technique on some cheap strings. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clear my little work area here, and I'm going to take the business end of these strings off here on this side. I'm going to use a little rag here just to protect the finish of my guitar. I'm going to use the little slot here to remove the bridge pin on this, so I can lift this up. There we go. I'm going to put it down, and if I want you to see this. You see how this is bent? That's exactly what you want to be able to do. What you don't want to do is when you reinsert these things is that there's a slot on the bridge pin, that the slot does not go and end on the end of the bridge pin like this. You want this ball end to rest up against the underside of the bridge, and I'll show you how to do that just a sec. So let me take off all these other guys. These are coming off nice and easy. That first one was a little hard, but the rest of these are coming off nice. Now there's some debate whether or not do you change one string at a time or 6 strings at a time. These strings are only going to be off for maybe a half hour at the best, so I don't see there's any bit of an issue here. So now let's take off all these other strings here. Get them off. Let me change the camera here a little bit for you. Make sure you dispose of these strings properly and safely. And if you have, like me, a cat who likes to play with these things, be sure that you protect your animal from these very sharp edges here. So now we have everything is completely off. I'm going to take my rag here and just clean off everything here. This guitar is brand new, so it's very pristine still. And one of the things that you're going to be able to do is, while all the strings are off, you can put your hand inside here and you can feel around and you can feel where the bridge plate is. So let's take out our Kurt Magnons here, my 942s, and I can't wait to put these on this great guitar. Take these out. And so it starts off with 9s, 11s, 16s, 24, 32, and the low E strings are 42. So let's start with the low E side. And so here's the technique. Let me just switch this over here a little bit. And what you want to be able to do is you want all the little holes here to be along in this direction. So let me just change these all around so that they are all in line straight. Go this way. And so now all 6 holes are going like this, like this, like this. And so that will make life much easier. So here's our trick. Let's take our low E string. I'm going to move my guitar. I'm sorry if I keep moving the camera here and it keeps shaking. But I'm going to take my string out. And we have the ball end over on this side. I'm going to put just a little bit of a bend on this. I'm going to take the bridge pin that I'm going to use to attach this. I'm going to stick the ball end down, and this groove that's on this pin, you're going to follow it down the string. So that way the groove of the pin is this way, and I'm going to now cinch. I'm going to push down on the bridge pin and pull up on the string. And you can feel if the ball end is resting up against the pin, which it is in this case. And so now I can just pull it forward, and I can now it's up against the wood of the bridge right now because it got stuck. It got stuck here. I want it to be like this and not like so. So that's one of the reasons why, with all 6 strings off, you can do this quite easily. Let's do the 32. Do the same thing on the A string. Put a little bit of a kink in it, so that way I can now push down and pull up. I'm putting my finger in here. Yep, it's down. And now I can now pull, and now these guys are up here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get these guys out of the way. I'm going to use my capo to help get these guys out of the way and hold them. That's a nice little trick right there. Let's do our D string. Get it out of the way. And now finally the high E string, the 9. It's like a human hair. It's so thin, but it plays so nice. There's my ball end. Let me just make sure. Yep, that's cinched down nicely. Okay, so now we have all 6 strings on our bridge plate here, nice and secure. So now, let's now start stringing these up. And so here's the trick. I'm going to move my camera a little bit, get it over here. You can see my bicycle stand and my bicycle pump, but that's okay. So with all these strings, with all the string holes on the tuning machines in this direction, all I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it through. Pull the string. It doesn't have to be super taut, but just taut. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it slightly taut. I'm going to go here at the nut, and I'm going to go back just a little bit more than 1 fret. And I only do this on the low E string because the string is thicker than the other ones, just a little bit past the 1st fret. Everyone else goes to the 1st fret. So here, I'm going to pull it back to here, and now I pull this up. And that's it. There's your knot. That's it. There's no luthier's knot. This is, you know, I found this out from Rhett Scholl's wonderful, his channel showed this technique of his luthier, and the question was said, you know, what's the biggest thing that you have, you know, that irks you from, you know, what people do? It says they luthier's knots. So this is all you got to do. So now, when it comes time to tightening this, you want to make sure that this string here wraps on the inside. By holding this up, I'm just going to do it by hand here. As soon as it hits this guy here, it's going to lock it in place. It's going to lock it in place. In fact, now I'm going to take my string winder. I'll use my electric. Use my electric. I like the electric here. And come on, where are you? There you are. And that's perfect 3.5 wraps. Perfect. The knot is beautiful, and I'm just going to leave this up here until I'm done. So that's 1 down. Let's now do our A string. It's the same thing. The binding hole is straight. I pull my string, not super taut, but taut. And now here I'm just going to go back just exactly 1 fret and hold it up. I'm just going to hold it up, and I'm going to use my capo just to hold the string so that way I can have a hand here. I can have a free hand. So I'm just going to hold this up, and I'm going to start turning this. I'll use my string winder again. Making sure that each wrap goes underneath the previous one. And finally, our high E string. Pull it back, bend it up, keep it in the groove, and wind. Okay, so at this point, the guitar is not in tune, but the strings are all there, and now it's comes time to actually cut these things nice and tight. So I'm going to cut these things really close. Try not to cut the primary part of the string. That would suck. And if we take a quick look here, hopefully the camera can grab this, but I don't know if it's grabbing I might take an outside picture, but we're talking great wraps here. 3.5 wraps, 4 wraps on each post. Perfect. So hopefully for a beginner that, changing the strings on your guitar is not a daunting task. It takes just a little bit of time, and you could always practice. You could buy a couple of sets of really super cheap strings to practice. It's a good skill to have. It really is, to be able to change strings on your guitar. This guitar is now all tuned up, and I tell you right now, I can tell by the feel that these things are just, it's going to improve a phenomenal guitar even more. And that's the whole purpose of changing strings, is to find the strings that you really like. And so again, the big trick here is don't use a luthier's knot. You just pull it back 1 fret, the first fret, from the nut back to the first fret. Maybe for the low E string, because it's a little thicker, pull it back maybe a 1.3 frets. Just pull it up, and as you wind it, it will lock in, that upturn will get locked in, and you'll get 3 to 4 winds around. I'm going to give you, I'm going to do a close-up shot of my handiwork here, and it's a fairly easy thing to do. I like changing all 6 strings at one time, so that way you can check to make sure that each bridge pin is secure. Having proper tools, at least a manual winder. You don't have to have an electric winder like this one, but to have a good set of wire cutters, maybe some needle noses, because you never know when you might need that, and using a capo to help keep the strings out of the way, to help you with your, to act as a third hand. So that's the big thing here. And again, while the strings are off, that's a good time to wipe down the fretboard, to wipe down your guitar. This guitar is brand spanking new, so I don't need to treat it with any conditioner, nor do I have to treat the bridge at this time. It's still pristine. But while the strings are off, that's a good time to do that. It's a good time before you change the strings to measure the string height with where'd it go? Here it is. I have a little gauge tool here. You just put it down on the 12th fret and measure the low E, the high E string, and see if you need to do a truss rod adjustment. I would wait a day or two after you change strings to let it settle in. These strings, all strings will stretch, so there's going to be a lot of tuning going on right now, and so I'm going to let them settle in. But I can tell right now they play quite nicely. From the 2 minutes that I did after I tuned it here, I did a little thing off camera, but can't wait to do more. And so again, for a beginner, don't be afraid of changing strings. If you still are afraid, or you're just not mechanically inclined, or you're afraid you might break something, then take it into a shop. Take it into your local guitar shop. I'm sure they would love to be able to help you out here. But there's nothing here that is overtly beyond capability of average people. There really isn't. Just take your time, practice, and that's why I highly recommend buying a bunch of cheap sets to practice. It's a good thing to practice. This channel is all about practice. So you might as well practice changing strings. It's something that, I don't do very often, but I've done it enough times. But I used to use luthier knots, and if you ever make a mistake, then you've pretty much, wiped out, getting a good knot on that. But, just, pulling the string taut and pulling it up and having it wrap around, perfect. It's fantastic. So again, it's Paul. Keep practicing, and I'll see you soon. Tune up, get new strings. I dig these. I'm not sponsored by these people. I just dig these strings. Hey everyone. Up here is going to be a video that you might want to play next. Or down here is going to be a playlist that would be a good thing to do to get more practice along the same subject lines. So until then, play this one or play this one. It's up to you. Whatever you want.